So welcome, Gregor Salmon, to Radio National Breakfast.
Hi, Geraldine.
In 2007, you set off to investigate the opium trade. Now, I want to know why and where you began.
Well, I began with the concept of opium itself. I wanted to write the modern story of opium, and to do that, I had, Afghanistan was obviously the leading producer. I had to go there. I wanted to do a first-hand story, to sit down with people who were involved in the cultivation, production of the drug, and to get their story.
Now, you've written a lot about the various systems involved, and you actually say Afghanistan is drifting once more. But what about the people? That's who I'm interested in, the people involved in growing poppy.
Well, there are quite a few. I think Afghanistan is a country where so many people have such terrific and heart wrenching stories. There are farmers who I spoke with who will obviously will tell you, look, we don't earn much money. This is a lifeline. This is a lifeline crop. It's against our religion, and we don't really want to be growing this garbage, but ultimately we have no choice. It works for us because poppy is not just a crop. It's a financial system. It's a finely tuned industry.
See, it's interesting even that you just used the word poppy. It took me a while to get used to that in the book. Not poppies or whatever, and it's like wheat, in other words. You use it in that generic term, that noun stands alone, does it?
Well, that's how they refer to it, at least in English, and then they'll also call it teriyaki.
And so it's poverty, is it? So they have got used to growing poppy, and do they really have no alternative, or is that just their construction of events?
It's very hard to be uniform about most things in Afghanistan to make a broad-reaching comment about certain things. But if you're looking at the year in year out reliance on poppy, it's about what their opportunities are to transition out of it. And you will find that it varies according to their circumstance. Farmers who are situated closer to provincial centres, closer to markets with roads that work, roads that are okay, that where markets work, and they can sell quite easily, get their crops to market, that they will switch to other crops from opium. And then you have, further out from the provincial centres, you have a mixed bag.
So so almost like a typical pattern one can imagine of sort of resistance to change the further away you get from the big centres.
Yeah, but in areas like Helmand, where you have the high insecurity, this serves as a shield for poppy to be the go-to crop, the lifeline crop, because you risk your life to travel down the road to take melons to market. You'll get shot, or you'll get taxed and robbed.
But what you won't if you take poppy?
Well, the buyer comes to you. You can stay put. You don't have to risk your life and leave your family unprovided for. Someone comes to the farm and takes your output away. You can also, get a loan because you grow poppy. You can run up a tab with a local shopkeeper because you grow poppy. You can't necessarily do that if you're growing tomatoes or potatoes, because it's the financial economics. Agricultural economics is in these areas is based on poppy.
And in fact, you assert in your book that it's the men from the government who are actually involved in growing, in providing the infrastructure, if I hear you correctly, that makes all this possible.
Well, yeah, I think it's now being if you look at the drug industry, it's consolidated into the hands of the powerful, and that means it's tribal leaders, government officials, and in general, drug traffickers, and they work. This drug network operates under the control of these don't know how mmany there are, but it's a handful, say. And they deal with the Taliban. So to say the Taliban are making money out of drugs, yes, that's true. But inside Afghanistan, it's predominantly government control.
Now, you went on one of these poppy eradication programs. Were they genuine, or did you think they were a bit of a charade?
I saw one instance of poppy eradication, which was for the cameras. It was a bit of a sham. And then I went out with one of the in Nangarhar. I went with one of the governor's team, and they weren't doing it just for me. They were out eradicating, but the whole eradication process was totally corrupted. The poor people get their crop eradicated because they don't have the money to pay off the eradication teams. Eradication teams. They'll take money from the international community for eradication, and then they'll solicit money from the communities to not eradicate certain crops. So unless you pay to have your crop spared.
And see, you also told a couple of stories in the book of the way the impact inside Afghanistan, the addictions inside Afghanistan, and the families shamed, the rural families, the provincial families shamed by one of their sons becoming an addict and actually having to go into some sort of rehab in Kabul maybe, and then going back hopefully to the provinces. So, I mean, have they just come to terms with the fact that this is the only way to make money? Or is there any move within, such as we would have here in Australia?
Look, I think they do make certain efforts to. Now, it is the stigma attached with addiction is terrible. It can lead you, as a father of an addicted son, you will be ostracised. Your voice in the local council won't hold much weight because your son's an addict. But the growing number of young men addicted, and means that this is a much broader problem. There are clinics all over the country, and they've got long waiting lists. They're coming into clinics for treatment. There's a great deal of ignorance about the drug because essentially they go from smoking hash to smoking opium or smoking heroin, and so there's not much knowledge about addiction itself.
So after all that you've outlined to us today, and the notion that poppy is in effect like our wheat in terms of its size, what can the international community do to make things better? What's really on offer?
Well, I think what's on offer is the ability to support the Afghans who are doing some terrific things in the country, and one of those ways is to channel money into government hands, which a lot of foreign countries aren't prepared to do with their aid dollar. There are terrific and positive signs, modest but very strong signs of the effectiveness of these little community councils that the UN has helped through an Afghan ministry, a program sponsored by the World Bank or monitored by the World Bank. These communities take charge of deciding on a project. They build the project. They guarantee security of the area, and that they might build a clinic. They might build a school. But these are buildings that are built by the local communities, and these are buildings that the Taliban won't destroy. And they cost a fraction of what the international community would be billed for it because they will subcontract out, and for a building that's worth $200,000, it would cost the international community $2 million to build, and the one that we build will be destroyed. And so the Taliban, this is a really effective way to rob them of a purpose, because if you help the local communities help themselves, they are often in a position to take care of themselves, and there have been instances where they have kicked Taliban out.
Well, I hope you're right, and I hope someone's listening. Gregor Salmon, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thanks, Joanna.
And Gregor Salmon's book is called Poppy, Life, Death and Addiction Inside Afghanistan's Opium Trade. It's published by Ebury Press.